Hey Amarillo. I am Skylar Gallup, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo. It is the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record each week at the beautiful offices of Rosenbach Contractors. They're experts in high-end design and construction, creating stunning, functional spaces through both new builds and remodels. Today's guest is Dr. Diedre Parrish. Dr. Parrish is the superintendent of Amarillo ISD, a position she's been in for just over a year. So hers is a leader of a big, important system perspective, and I always find those super interesting to hear more about, specifically in the areas of leadership and steering a boat that big. Diedre brings a lot of educational experience to her work and talks about it in a really beautiful way, about the importance of seeing the whole child, the remarkable impact of a teacher, and how important it is to keep relationships at the center of learning. Here's Diedre. Diedre Parrish, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excited to get to know you a little bit better in this format. So let's start. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
I am from Lubbock, born and raised in Lubbock. We lived in the same house. Parents built the house. In fact, we just recently sold it because they passed away in 24 and 25, but grew up in the same house at 8th and Chicago, attended all the schools in Lubbock, and went to Texas Tech, met my husband there, and it wasn't until after we married that we actually started moving around.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, did you want to be an educator? Were your parents teachers?
My dad, several actually. So my grandfather was a superintendent in Esteline and Rawls, so very small areas. And then my dad was a teacher for 32 years. So he was the male for the elementary school. He taught PE. And so he did that forever and always supported us and always encouraged us to get our education, but also he had a love for it. And so he said he knew that I was going to be a teacher once I started doing biology for non-majors at Texas Tech as a master's student. So I started teaching that lab. So he said he knew that's what I was going to do. I thought medical school, but then so I did a bachelor's, master's in zoology. Then we moved with Bud's job to Wichita Falls, and thought I would teach at the college level. And a mutual friend said, nope, you need to go into public school. And so started there and in Wichita Falls. And then we went back to Tech to do our PhDs, then did a postdoc at MD Anderson. And it was then that I realized, nope, I needed to be in public ed. So, and that was in 2004. So I've been in ever since.
What is your husband's work?
So he is a mechanical engineer by his education. He has a PhD in mechanical engineering, and he is now the general manager of a branch of Coherent, which is a company that has many, many branches, but his is the thermal branch. So they do components for things like car seats that heat and cool, or PCR machines that need to extreme temperatures.
Sure.
Yeah.
So y'all are technically the doctor's parish.
We each have PhDs, yes. Yes, we each have PhDs.
That's how you would
yeah.
address your envelope, the doctor's parish. I love that.
Graduated from Tech on the same day.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Cool. Okay, so you went into education. Let me make sure I get that straight. You got your doctoral degree
in biology. So then I went back. So then I did a postdoc at MD Anderson, and Bud was, so we've kind of worked. When I did my postdoc in Houston, he was going back and forth to Carrollton because he had a job there. And then even while we're here, he has a plant in Dallas and a plant in Vietnam, so he still travels quite a bit.
In Vietnam?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. So when we were in Houston, he was going back and forth, and I decided I wanted to be back in education. Frisco ISD hired me. And so he could keep his job, and we moved to Frisco. And it was then that I decided, well, if I'm going to stay in education, I need to have those degrees. So I got a master's in educational administration and then a doctorate in education administration too. So I have two doctorate degrees, so first one was biology. Second one was education administration.
So you just really love education.
I do. I truly believe in it.
You're all about it for yourself and others.
That's right. And I'm really
that.
proud of my girls. My oldest just finished her master's from Tech in data analysis, so it's in the business school, and my youngest is working on hers in administration. So it's just, I think they just recognize it's the expectation. You just keep learning.
Get those degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So when on your resume that I was looking at, you have like some sciencey stuff in Ecuador. So
Yes.
that makes sense. So you were doing some of that. Yeah, talk to me about
Right.
that work.
So as a PhD student doing my research for the dissertation, I got to travel quite a bit. So we went through 13 states of Mexico, and then Ecuador was a big trip where we went and spent, I think, close to 3 weeks just collecting mammals. And so we would do kind of a survey of what was there. I was cytogenetics, so I looked at karyotypes of chromosomes. And so we would look at those to see the patterns of certain bands. We had different probes that we used to see. Mine was X activation. So what does when you put the probes on it, what does that look like under the microscope? But anyway, so karyotypes is what I did. And yes, that's how we did it. We collected mammals from all over. It was a great part of just that learning piece, because getting a degree in biology, it's about life. It's about, things outside of a lab. And so that was really a part that I loved, and I think gave me a perspective that many others may not have, because I have been out and I have understood, I do understand the whole research aspect and what it takes to start and finish a project.
Yeah, and the application of it.
And the application
in the wild.
of it. And the beauty of it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Nature's just amazing.
Beautiful part of the world. Are you an outdoorsy person?
Yes, well, so not like let's go run, let's go for a hike, but definitely let's be outside, let's work in the yard, we've always skied, we've always beach, that kind of stuff. I'm not let's go and make it more work, but let's enjoy being outside.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2004, you enter the public education system.
Back from, yes. So I was in Wichita Falls for 2 and then left, and then so got back in 2004.
Okay. In Frisco, you said?
Yes.
What were you doing?
So Frisco High School hired me to teach AP Bio. So I went back to teach advanced placement biology, but I also taught all the levels from regular AP, sheltered, all the different levels of biology class. I also taught many of the CTE electives, medical microbiology, pathophysiology, all of those that they're offered now. But Frisco ISD hired me to do that. I was at Frisco High, and it was just when Frisco had 2 high schools, so they had just opened Centennial. So this was in 2004, and now Frisco is one of the biggest ones, because when I left in 2017, there were 10, about to open 11 high schools. So that didn't even tell you about the other schools. So they hired me. I was at Frisco High School for 2 years. Then I opened Wakeland High School as department chair and still AP Bio, whatever. And then moved to Liberty High School as a campus administrator, so as an assistant principal, and then moved to central admin and curriculum and instruction. So then I was there for 10 years.
Okay.
So that was my stint, yes, for 13 years in Frisco ISD.
Talk to me about the experience of a classroom teacher at that time for you.
So Frisco was different in that because we were building it, we could, and adding classrooms, we could standardize the non-negotiables. We could say, this is what we're doing, this is how we do it. And so I got very involved. It was another learning experience, because to me, Frisco ISD is a learning organization. And so we got there, I was part of the curriculum writing team, part of the assessment team, part of, anything that was happening on the campuses. So it was learning to do things that really had a great impact. At the time, we were the largest district that was an A rating. And so we were intentional about what the classrooms looked like, so that whatever classroom you were in, no matter what campus you were on, we knew that you were getting the best opportunity for learning. So it was a great opportunity to see what that looked like and to be a part of it. So then as I started moving as an assistant soup and CNI, I knew what that looked like, and I knew the pieces that were required to build great instruction and to build learning opportunities for kids.
And what does that look like? Tell me, yeah.
So starting with the standards, unpacking a standard, what does the student really need to know, and what does that mastery look like? I think oftentimes we go into a classroom and we don't even know what it looks like for a student to get it, right? We often say, it's how they do on a test, but there are many signs. There are many ways to know, checks for understandings along the way that you need to put in place so that right? The exam should never be a surprise. You should know how a student is going to perform before you ever get there. And so learning that process, but it's also yes, what it looks like in a classroom, how are we designing learning experiences for children? So when you ask what it looked like then, we were still a textbook, which was great. Give me a hardback any day.
Same.
COVID did put us on a computer, and I think we learned that that's not great for all kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am a pencil paper. You can see right here. I'm a pencil paper. I'm a hardback book. And we had those resources, but we were also very hands-on. So what were we doing to engage students with the content? What did that look like? So I'm a huge believer in knowing what the standards are so you know what mastery looks like for the students, but then how do you engage students in that learning? And as you talk about what does that look like for preparing the instructors, what does that professional learning look like so that teachers know and experience themselves what that looks like and what that feels like. So when they walk in, we often talk about writing. I think several instructors have forgotten really how difficult it is to write. And so in Deidre, when I went up there, we did a writing project, and every one of us as instructors had to go through, it was called Abydos writing at the time, but what does that look like? To sit down and have to think and write and produce something. Because we've forgotten that is a difficult process, and not everyone is a writer, and I think you often hear, I don't like math. Well, we all have to do math, and we all have to write, whether it's an email or, a text these days or a tweet, whatever it might be. But, we have to learn how to do that, and we forget that learning is difficult. And so just putting teachers through that reminder, maybe of this is what our kids are going through, remember what this is like, and then create that learning experience for them. So I think just going back through that, but making sure teachers have the resources. You can't put someone in a classroom and say, go do without any support. So they have to have the support from the learning to the resources and having them accessible, even lab supplies. Do you have what you need to do a lab? Because if you don't, you're not going to do it. So all of those pieces, and a science coordinator, so I went from classroom to administrator to science coordinator, but making sure that every classroom had those supplies and had those resources and could build on the learning experience and the learning for kids. So it was a great time. And I think even now, the challenge I see is the devices, the access to information. What does that look like? Building that in as a tool. The whole idea of putting someone on Google Classroom, I just don't think that's the way all kids learn. And so making sure that technology is still a tool, that it's not the what or the who that's teaching the child.
Yeah.
We need that human connection. Students need someone to see the student, see the person, see him or her, and connect. Because we learn through connections and we learn through those social interactions. And so whether you're teaching in 2004 or teaching in 2026, we still have to, we're human, and we need the connections, and we need the relationships, and we need the emotions. And I think we need to remember that when we're in classrooms.
Yeah, I think we're kind of like as a society grappling with that, I was on a future planning committee with a school district in the area, not Amarillo ISD, and we were listening to panels of junior high students, a series of panels. What we heard from the kids was that there were too much screens in their instruction, and because you were talking about science, the strongest story in that I experienced was a kid saying, I want to dissect a frog. I don't want to watch a video of dissecting a frog. And that set so heavily with me as like, we're the adults in the room and our kids are telling us that we've swung too far.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I totally agree.
And I think we're seeing some of that, the cell phone ban last legislative session, and I think there will look to be some more legislation on how we're using screens for instruction.
And I think that has a financial implication as well. If we can't keep continuing to refurbish and replenish Chromebooks all the time, well, let's look at the usage. And, we still have to have online testing, and I get that, but what does that look like? We used to have computer labs where you checked it out right, you signed on the room, whatever it was, and went in and, accessed it at the time. But, there are a lot of things that we have to reconsider. What's best for kids? What's good financially? And are we truly giving the students the learning experience that they need?
Yeah. How many years in education?
So I like to count them all because I actually started teaching.
I certainly think you should.
Right. Because I started teaching at Tech as a master's student, in '93. So honestly, if you look at it that way, I'm 30 plus years. I did not, because I did teach at the college, again, it was part-time, so it wasn't full-time position, so that doesn't count in your TRS, numbers. So I always have to go back and think. I think TRS, I'm maybe 24, 25, but really between master's degree, between a PhD teaching during that time and teaching at University of North Texas, I should be like at 33 years.
Nice.
But it's interesting always when they say, well, how many years were you in school? And I have to count how many years I have not been in school, but yet always teaching.
There's so much change in that time.
Yes,
Period.
indeed. Yes. Yes. And, in a good way, I look at my girls. So I have two girls, they're 29 and 26, and they're both teachers. So my oldest, Catherine, is a sixth grade math teacher, and she was one that did not like group work. She didn't like problem-based learning. She wanted direct teach, right? Tell me what I need to know. Let me learn it. Or, and she would study by herself, but she was very motivated, top 10 in her class. So that was Catherine. My youngest is Isabella, and she is a high school dance teacher.
Oh, that's so fun.
Right outside of Annapolis, Maryland, so in Anne Arundel County. And it's her first year at high school, so she's drill team, dance teacher. And she was very much relationships. Like if you had a relationship with her, she would learn from you.
Yeah.
Whatever that teacher did. But if there wasn't a connection, she wasn't going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's truly, education is about the child. And how are we meeting the needs of the child? And so it's been so fun to watch my girls go through that process and recognize not only how they learned or how they connected with people, but what their kids need. And so it's a great experience and great thing to watch. So whether, I was in the classroom, whether they're in the classroom, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience for them.
Those are lovely names, by the way. Catherine and Isabella.
Yes.
Very classical, very beautiful.
Yes, Catherine with a C.
Okay, yes.
And Isabella, yes.
Those are lovely.
Who knew they were in Wuthering Heights? I had no idea those were the two characters, but they are. It wasn't my intention, but that's how it happened.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm interested, we know each other because of kind of my day job in public education advocacy. And so I think I obviously come to this with a little bit of a bias for that conversation, but actually public school issues have become very, very public issues. And so I think regardless of the listeners, engagement, we are all affected by public schools, of
Absolutely.
course, with varying degrees of kind of like closeness. But let's start with teachers. I think there's a couple of areas that affect public education that people are really aware of.
Yeah.
And I think one of those is the challenge of educators.
Right.
And I'm interested from your perspective, coming from the classroom, how's it going for teachers? Because it's an important role.
Well, and I'd even if we start bigger. So my approach to even my job is we are interdependent. As a community, as a city, as every governmental agency, piece of, we impact the community, our children, and in that interdependence, those relationships are so important, but when you talk about the teachers play a huge role in the lives of their students, in the lives of their families, and it's such an important role. And I think when you talk about kind of that impact of the teacher role, we as public educators need to do a much better job of advocating and supporting the role of the teacher. Because when you ask kind of, what do we see, the public perception of a teacher, yes, it's a hard job, but it is such an important job. And if we don't talk, and I tell this teachers and the principals, tell your stories. Tell the impact, that you have a protein bar in your drawer because you have that one student that comes in your classroom that hasn't had breakfast, may not have had dinner, and that you, out of your own pocket, take that protein bar out and hand it to that child. I said, those are stories that people don't hear because they only hear I don't even know how difficult discipline is. Right.
Yeah.
And the crazy extremes of student behavior today,
Yes.
and there are.
Yeah.
There are I personally would rather they hear the story of the kind things and the impactful things that they do rather than focusing on how difficult the behaviors might be. And they are. And we need to take care of those. But that's, one in 150 or 200 kids that we're talking about that interact with that teacher every day. So how can we tell the story that you listened, you noticed that child wasn't feeling well today. And you walked over and you said, "You doing okay? Is there something going on that you just want to talk about? Maybe not right now, but if you want to, I'm here." Those are the things that I think, I'm going to get all emotional. I love Don Powell.
I do too.
If you've ever heard him speak, and probably this is from him, the important role that teachers play in lives of all 28,000 of our kids. It needs to be valued, and it needs to be praised and celebrated, because you think about the time students spend with the teachers and their coaches and the impact, that's really what grows the child, right? Are those interactions that a child has at school every single day. And yes, we're talking about teachers, but you talk about every person on that campus, from the lady that's helping in the cafeteria line to the custodian that's helping, wipe off the tables, or, the bus driver that gets them to school, the secretary at the front of the office that, says good morning. Every person on the campus that the child interacts with impacts, right, what they have. And so I think, we hear that it's difficult for teachers right now, and so I think as educators, we need to do a better job of telling the other stories and telling the great things that go on every day on a campus. We could compliment, we could brag on stuff every single day. I tell our administrators, there's something that happens every minute that you could shout out, that you could celebrate, that you could let people know, a child learns to read, a child speaks out, sounds out the letters for the first time, understands a math problem. Where are those stories? That's what we need to be talking about.
Yeah, I think I was shopping with my son day before yesterday in Kohl's, and he ran up. I was in the dressing room, ran up, banging on the door. I thought something was wrong. He's 8. Mom, Mom, Mom. I was like, what? I get dressed and open the door, and he was like, the secretary from our school works at Kohl's.
There you go. Fantastic.
And then I didn't even really have to watch him the rest of the time. Bless her heart. I'm sure I am assuming that she is lovely, lovely, lovely and didn't mind it.
Yeah.
But he was just like, I just went and walked around and she showed me what she does over the summer and blah, blah, blah.
Fantastic. Yes.
It's those relationships that are so impactful.
Absolutely. Even Mr. Bishop, our chief of secondary, took his granddaughter to the movie theater like a week after school was out, and a commercial came up. And he said the first question she asked was, "When does school start? I'm ready to go back." And that's what we want.
That's wonderful.
That's what we want.
Hey, Amarillo. If you've ever dreamed of a home that's not just built for now, but built for the duration, you need to know about For the Duration Homes. They're a family-owned, Panhandle-based builder crafting energy-efficient and beautifully designed spaces, from custom homes to remodels to pools. What I love is their commitment to community, transparency, and treating every project like it's their own. Check out their work at ftdhomes.com or listen to their podcast. It's called The Home Innovation Show, for design inspiration and building tips from right here in the Texas Panhandle. So you are superintendent of Amarillo ISD.
Yes.
You're coming on, I think you said, 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been like?
I love it here. I absolutely love it in Amarillo. I've been so Wichita Falls was my first one again, but Frisco was, like I said, 10 high schools, so 65,000 kids. And then assistant soup job was in Decatur, 3,500, but then I was in Derzett in the Panhandle for 140 pre-K-12. And it varies. Like, I think people say, well, she said 120 or 150, but let's say 140 pre-K-12, all in the same building. And so being a secondary teacher, I was very used to high school kids, whatever. But being on a pre-K-12 campus and getting hugs from those precious pre-K children, every morning, whatever it was, what an experience.
Yeah.
So I love that. And also, being in a small town, you do pretty much everything, right? At least you're involved in everything that happens, from community to school district to, everything. I even said I was accounts payable and receivable at one point. So you've done it all, but you learn. Mm-hmm. Again, I learned how to do a lot of things. I learned how to depend on the Region Center, right? The service center. If I had a question, I was calling somebody. So that was a great learning experience as well. And then in Sweetwater, and again, they're 3A, 4A. So that mid-size campus, or that mid-size district.
Yeah.
Then to be back in Amarillo, where it's a big district. I mean, we're one of the 14th, I said, size of city, but we're in the top 50, in the size of our school district of Texas, top 50 in Texas. And so I love being back in a large system where I have people to work with. I'm very much of a brainstorming, let's throw out ideas, how can we improve what we're doing? Nice. That's just the way I like to work. And so being around people that have that same mentality, but also we've done strengths, and I love doing strengths because you can see those that execute things. You can see those that influence, So who has what strengths, and how do we use those strengths so that we move best, forward as a team, the best way possible. So it's been great. I love being back. I love all the campuses and the character and the personality of all the administrators. And then, of course, we have the best of the best teachers. So it's a really great place to be. I'm really proud to be part of the district.
What does a day look like for you? I find I think, and I ask because one of the things I think is interesting to try to understand someone's perspective is a person that leads a gigantic organization. Mm-hmm. How,
Well, thank goodness I have a great team.
Yeah.
I have great people. So my job really has been focused on external relationships. What does it look like to build community? What does it look like to build that trust, to build the relationships so that we are part of the bigger, community? We are that interdependent piece, and we play a role in moving Amarillo forward. So by having a great team and knowing that they're taking care of the principals, they're taking care of the operations, the finance, it has allowed me to attend meetings, attend luncheons, take care of board members so that, so that they feel comfortable and they're in the know of what's going on. So I love, I'm on several boards, Catholic Charities Board, I'm on the Opera Board. So connecting, right? Being a part of the bigger community, and through those connections, which means I go to a lot of meetings, whether they're internal meetings, but also a lot of external meetings. But, staffing, safety's huge. So really just depends on the day as to what meetings I have, what luncheons I have, Lions Club, Rotary, all of those connections are really important. And I feel like as superintendent of Amarillo ISD, but also as a part of Amarillo ISD, we need to give back and we need to serve the community that serves us because again, we're responsible for all our kids, we're responsible for the future, and we have to do it together. It's the only way it's going to happen. And so I encourage even my folks, my cabinet members they're Kiwanis, they're Rotary, they're Lions, they're part of the Barrio Committee, United Way, but they all have to be a part of something because we need to be seen as contributors, and because I think that's what we are. And we're contributing not only through our time and our efforts, but through growing and building the students as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I think organizations have a tendency to silo, right?
Yes. One of the first words which made me kind of think when I asked someone about what was their view of Amarillo ISD, and the comment was, I really don't think much about it because they're insular. Mm. And I thought, well, that's really not what we need to be, that we need to reach out and we need to be part of something bigger. And I think that's what we're trying to do. I think we've made great strides at getting there because when when they talk about Amarillo ISD, I want someone to have an opinion. This is what they're doing. This is the impact they're having. This is something they need to work on. Mm-hmm. And if we hear that, please, let us know. Mm-hmm. But I want them to talk about us. I want them to say, I hope they've seen a billboard. Oh, did you see that billboard? And, did you hear that radio, spot?
Yeah.
Did you see that they're celebrating students for this, or that, they won at plays, went on to, and competed at state level? I mean, those are the things we want them to say.
Yeah.
But you know what? We have to communicate that so that people know. And hopefully we're getting better at that too. But I want us to be part of the conversation.
What other priorities did you identify kind of over, just over a year in, you're still getting going.
Right.
For sure. I probably will for a while. That's a big.
So communication was a big one. I felt like we were doing great things, but we weren't telling anybody. So that when we came in, we understand that marketing and communication needs to be, we needed a 5-year plan. We need some strategic plan moving forward. So we have great things. One of the diagrams I like to see is we have great things. We have arrows going in all directions. But we need our arrows aligned, and we all need to be going in the same direction. So we've worked on that with community committees and 6 different committees on what that 5-year plan looks like in the scorecard moving forward, so that people know what we're working on. And that student achievement, of course, is going to be our top priority no matter, but staff. How are we recruiting and retaining the best staff and growing them with professional learning? What are we doing to engage community and governmental relations? And how are we having a voice, not only here in Amarillo community, but at the state level? What does that look like? And then, of course, financial integrity. When you have taxpayer money, we need to be very transparent and open about the decisions that we're making. And kudos to Daniel West, CFO right now, but anyone that's been before him, and the strategy and the approach to how we've done our finances and budget, and we're in a good place. So I'm very pleased with all of that.
Yeah, I think to put a finer point on that, you guys are not operating in a deficit budget.
We are not.
And I think I think it's about half of school districts in the state of Texas right now are operating in deficit budgets. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, and several things have contributed. The ESSER funds, if people were not wise on how they spent the ESSER funds, then they called it a cliff.
Money that we got during COVID.
Yes. And it was a lot. And they told us all along, do not put this money on people. Do not put, So I think there were many factors, in the past several years that have contributed to that difficulty. And again, kudos. I can't say enough of how great our finance people have been and are in their approach to the finances from Amarillo ISD. So it's been great. But all of those, you have to focus on all of it.
Yeah.
And in the whole time communicate and engage others in the process.
Yeah. What challenges do you face most critically?
Communication.
Yeah.
Truly it is making sure that we're communicating what we're doing. And I think it builds trust. I think it builds relationships. It builds just that connectivity. The trust is hard to earn, but easy to break. And so whether it's absolutely important and vital, but it's also a challenge, because we have to make sure that we're doing that. I would say, student achievement is always in keeping up with what the state is doing. We've got new assessments coming out. We've got new challenges that way, and just making sure that we're, again, giving our students the best opportunities to learn. I'm not a big state assessment person. I think we should tell our students every day, bring your best. Don't wait until we're doing this, don't wait until that, but every day is a day to do your best. So we shouldn't be focused on one day, one test. So that's how I say, but of course it's always, and I would say just keeping up with the legislature and the laws that are coming down. You do know, but even policies, Update 126 had 3,000 pages of new updates that we had to pay attention to and implement, right? Some way, somehow. But that, just keeping up with the legislative requirements, and because as you know and seen, as soon as you don't do something, they're watching. And so just being aware of that and making sure, and again, goes back to the great team. When you have a great team and everybody's watching their areas, we do a much better job, but you always have to, you don't want to miss anything.
Right.
You don't want to drop a ball.
Right.
You got to keep it all going with still the focus on the kids.
Yeah.
So a lot of different things coming at us.
I'm curious. I think humans have a hard time having perspective, and as a parent, I think that it's really hard to be a kid right now.
It is.
And I think one of the things that is beautiful and challenging about public schools is that is where society exists. Good, bad, and ugly.
Right.
All of it
Right.
walks in public education hallways. And so I think sometimes some of the flack that pub ed gets is because everybody's in it.
Everybody.
Every
That's right.
challenge, every success is walking in you guys' halls. And so I wonder, or I'm interested to hear your thoughts on like how the kids are right now. We know that
Right.
there are really unique mental health challenges,
Right.
and everybody's vaping, and this is really just out of the heart of a mom who's my oldest is about to go in junior high, and I'm terrified.
Right.
Because the junior high campus is such a unique place. But what is your pulse on our kids?
Right. Well, it takes us all, right? We have to partner with parents. We have to partner with community. We have to partner because when they are in our halls, we have to love them and we have to see them as individuals. A lot of the times I think they come in feeling the judgment of society, feeling the judgment of social media. We're battling that, right? And so bringing a child into our hallways and saying, we love you, no matter, you are you, and we're going to love you. We're going to meet your needs. We're going to try our best, right, each and every day to bring out your best. And we have to maintain that mentality. Even when a child does misbehave, there are so many factors that go into why a child misbehaves.
Yeah.
And the factors that they come to, we can't control. All we can control is what we see in our walls, like you said, during instructional hours, right, during the day. But there's so much more that a child undergoes. So it's through that communication, those phone calls, talking to the child and making sure that that we're dealing with the whole child, not just and its behavior. It's not personal. And so just making sure that the child understands that we're there to support him or her, right? So yes, every single school has complexities, and every single school has, a different group of kids with different needs, but also different outside factors. And so it's recognizing, to me, again, the whole child, that it's not just what we see every day, but it's what they bring with them. And so organizing parent engagement activities, organizing ways to bring the family into it, making them feel welcome at the school, so that it's not just the bad phone calls that they get, but that they understand that we're there to support the individual and to support the family. And we have great principals, and they do fantastic things, making the family feel welcome and important to the life of the child. So even in high schools, you talk about, we looked at superintendent scholars and how many of the parents love to come and see their child walk across the stage. How do we celebrate? How do we make sure that we're celebrating good, we're communicating good, not always the bad? And so it is, to me, it's such a partnership. You hear it takes a village. It does take a village. It takes all of them. But if we're not engaging the parent and we're not making the child feel valued, then we are going to struggle. And it's going to be a struggle, for however many years the child comes. But I think at the end of the day, that every child is an individual, and how are we meeting the needs of the individual? And that's the only way we can move forward.
I love that you said it's not personal, it's behavior.
Absolutely.
I think that would be very difficult. It always surprises me, or I am always really impressed and have deep respect for the expertise of educators. Anytime I get to get a glimpse into the pedagogy, which was a new word to me whenever I started working in pub ed stuff, that it's I can read, but I think COVID taught a lot of us little parents. There's a big difference between reading and teaching reading.
Yes.
My oldest was a COVID kindergartner, and I was like, what is going on?
Yes.
And I think I'm always really impressed by those little snippets of and I try to, translate it into parenting skills, right?
Yeah.
That it's not personal, it's behavior. Like I'm
Right.
going to put that one in my pocket
Yep.
for when I'm really frustrated.
I used to tell my girls, they'd come home and they'd say, oh, this is a bad kid. And I'd say, no, it's not a bad kid. No child is a bad kid. They make bad choices, and those bad choices usually manifest in bad behaviors, but it's not a bad kid.
I'm big on that one too.
Yeah.
I tell my kids like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Because, and to your point, the labels that these kids are getting are just, being written in ink on their heart. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
Right.
you got to be careful with that.
You do. And you never know. I mean, there's so many situations, and children have so many experiences outside of the school walls, and you have to take those into consideration because that's what, builds their character as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whole child.
I am appreciative of that focus from your leadership position. What is your best day at work?
Oh, my best day is when we are on campuses and seeing kids. One of my favorite things, Landrigan. It started last year. So when I first arrived last spring, board members hosted me on campus visits. And so we hit every campus.
You've got a great board too.
Oh, I do. They are absolutely fantastic. And that's what I was talking about, Mr. Powell. He always loves talking about our teachers. And so I think of him when I think about telling the stories.
I love
Because
him.
if you have a second, just listen to him talk, and you just know where his heart is, right?
Totally.
And so that's where I went when I was like teared up, is because I
Yeah.
can hear him in my head talking about our teachers. But anyway, so Landrigan, on my visit there last year, had this whole setup where the pre-K and the senior on the senior walk, pre-K and the senior walked together, and so they held hands and walked down the hallway,
So
and
sweet.
and then they got to come and tell me like what their plans were and what they want to be when they grow up. Well, they did it again, so this spring. So I got to go and visit with the kids and see what they want to be, and it is so precious when you see that little pre-K, the little pre-K student. They have, the hope and the excitement and love of school and love of teachers, and come up and I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a server. I want to be, fantastic. And then you see the seniors that are saying
Giants.
Yes, giants.
So big now.
Yes, and they want to go and have their own business.
You're doing
and they
it,
want to
yeah.
go and be a minister. That's the best part, is when you're really making the connections, standing up and shaking hands with superintendent scholars. Love that. Graduation. What a wonderful experience. So again, anything that you could celebrate, just being with the students is the best day ever.
Yeah, I think so too. What are you excited about?
I am excited about moving forward with the scorecard, with the plan. We started work with Bob Templeton, who's a demographer. And so,
What is this scorecard?
Okay, so it's our strategic plan. So the strategic planning process, I would say the product is the scorecard.
Cool.
Okay, so whether you hear strategic plan, but it aligns what we're doing with outcomes. So as you look at student achievement, well, what does that look like, and what is that outcome, and where are we going? As you look at recruiting and retaining, where are we? Have we measured how many openings we have? Who are we hiring? Where are we? So all of that, but just being intentional about monitoring, and then what is that outcome? Are we the most competitive? Are we, what are we doing that attracts people to Amarillo ISD? So in community engagement, how are we engaging community? How are we getting involved? How are we, measuring our governmental relations so that we're, again, having a voice and having I wouldn't say sway, but at least having an idea, an opinion about how things are going.
Yeah.
Rather than just letting things happen.
Yeah.
Right? We need to be more involved. And then, of course, financial integrity and saying this is what we're trying to do, and we're being transparent, but we're also looking for more opportunities so that it's, again, not happening to us, but that we're being proactive, and we have an active role in this and how we choose to react and how we choose to respond. Because we could say, oh, we're the victims and they're doing this to us, or we can say, this is our budget, this is the money we have, how are we going to use it for the best, for the best opportunities for kids. That needs to be our voice, that needs to be our approach, and it needs to be our mindset of how we move forward. So I'm just excited about using that plan in how we act, in our actions, how we move forward, and in our vision, what we want for kids. And this is what we know is best for kids, and so let's make it happen. So I'm really excited about that.
If you're starting or growing a small business and need some cash, let me tell you about Amarillo Venture Capital. They are a Hey Amarillo sponsor. They're locally owned, and what makes them different is they don't just invest in businesses. They invest in people. So whether you need $5,000 or $50,000, they offer flexible asset-based loans, often with funding in a week or less. And it's not just the money. They can connect you with their local network of legal, accounting, and business resources to help you succeed. Check them out at amarilloventurecapital.com. All right, I'm back with Dr. Diedre Parrish. This is the part of the show we call 8 Straight. I've got 8 fast ones for you.
Okay.
When you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, which I assume you do quite a bit.
Yes, I do.
What do you hope for?
I hope for more families with more kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hope we can do something to counter the enrollment decline.
Yeah.
Because that also means population decline, right?
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
So more families, more kids. Let's bring them on.
When was the last time you went to Paladuro Canyon?
Last summer, looking for birds. I love watching birds. I've taken the bird class at Amarillo College and, the Panhandle Birding Club. So lots of fun birds to see.
There are cool birds here. I've just recently, did Annette Carlisle get you into birding?
Yes, I love Annette Carlisle.
He got me too.
Yes, love that.
It's very interesting. There's cool birds.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful birds.
Good.
Yes.
Other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
Well, and I wouldn't say too much, but what I've noticed is the number of coffee shops, the number of tea stores, tea shops.
Yeah, I don't know what they call those. Tea places.
So and maybe it's just because of where I've moved from, that it's just, normally it was just your Starbucks, right? That's all you have. And now we've got all of these choices, no matter where you are.
We have a lot of cool coffee places. The tea thing, I think, is really fun. And, my day job, I work with coworkers literally all across the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. And just like in the last year, everyone's like, oh my gosh, have you been to HTO? And I'm like, you're welcome.
And yes.
We produce that. But other places don't, you don't go get a tea. You go to Sonic. I grew up in Seminole.
Yes.
So you go to Sonic and get a Coke, right? Mm-hmm. And in Amarillo, you go get tea.
That's right.
I like it.
And people always walk around with their cups
of tea.
Yes.
And what do we not have enough of?
Yoga studios.
Are you a yogi?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. So when we came, I even asked, where do we go for yoga? What do we do? And so anyway, I'm still looking, but I haven't found one yet. But anyway, yes, I love yoga.
I'm glad to learn that about you.
Yes.
What's your favorite local building?
I love the Santa Fe building. It is beautiful when it's all, lit up. And I know it's a historic, landmark. And so, yes, what a beautiful place. But we have several others, all the houses, just amazing. But that's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah. And favorite local restaurant?
Cellar 55.
Nice.
Because it's one we can go, but also I can pick something up on my way home.
Nice.
So, yes, but I love that place. It was one of the first ones we went to when we first arrived.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Okay, you've got 4 hours to spend in Amarillo with someone who's not been here before. What are you doing?
We love our backyard. So we would spend the time in the backyard and probably order food.
Nice.
But yeah, so we've worked hard and we just love we have trees and shade and just a fun place to be.
Are you in Wolfland then?
We are.
You have trees.
We do.
Big, beautiful trees.
Yeah, 100-year-old trees.
Oh, that's perfect.
And it's just amazing, yes.
What do you think people get wrong about Amarillo, Deidre?
You normally hear that it's windy all the time, and I don't think it is windy all the time. Do we have our days that it's incredibly windy? Yes, but the mornings are beautiful and the evenings are beautiful, and they're just, so to me, they get wrong that the weather's bad all the time, because it's not. And it's just, really, it's more beautiful. It's beautiful more often than it's not.
I agree with that one. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that concludes our 8 straight. I like to wrap these guys up with offering my guests the opportunity to endorse something. What would you endorse for listeners?
Well, this might be silly, but Uber Eats.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
We would stay home and just order food. If the fact that they can bring you food to your door, we are big fans. So Uber Eats.
I DoorDash, but and they've gotten the delivery fees low, so it's not like a ridiculous thing.
Yes.
I love your endorsement, Deidre. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been a lovely conversation. I appreciate your leadership and your work and your time this morning.
Yes, thank you very much, Skylar. I enjoyed the visit.
And that concludes the episode. Thanks to Dr. Parrish for the interview. Thank you to For the Duration Homes and Amarillo Venture Capital for supporting the podcast, and to Broderick Adams for editing every week. Executive producers on this episode are Gary and Linda Pittner. And thank you for listening. This has been episode 454 of Hey Amarillo. I'm Skylar Gallup, and we hope you'll listen next week.